Welcome again. I am Manal Zainuddin, the founder of Orbit's Development Code, a transdisciplinary approach for conscious learning and being. If you are new to my content, I have been in the field of education for 21 years as a teacher and a director, and now as a global education consultant. I speak about education from macro and micro angles, education that is never limited to schooling and schoolwork, education that is never separate from the real personal and professional world, and most importantly, that is never separate from us as conscious beings. This video is related to the Acts of Kind Attention series, and it is about the 22nd of March, World Water Day. World Water Day 2022 is celebrated under the theme Groundwater, Making the Invisible Visible. And this is, as the title shows, focuses on the pressing need to manage water properly amidst the current environmental crisis. The significance of this theme lies in the fact that water is an indispensable natural resource, and it is needed for three different purposes: drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene. Now, to many of us, water is taken for granted as it reaches our homes effortlessly. But to many others, it is a daily concern and even an hourly concern. The challenge posed here is that even the many of us who already have access to water will eventually face the same destiny. Water is being misused and mismanaged, and this will result in water scarcity. The question beside to what extent is ESG serving us, environmental, social, and governance criteria, the set of standards for operations and conscious investments, is how can we as educators and parents support? So let's consider this from Orbit's perspective. Owning our way. Groundwater, Making the Invisible Visible is the title of the 2022 edition of the World Water Development Report launched at the 9th World Water Forum in Dakar, Senegal. The key messages for this year. Groundwater is invisible, but its impact is visible everywhere in the world. Almost all of the liquid fresh water in the world is groundwater, supporting drinking water supplies, sanitation systems, farming, industry, and ecosystems. And here it's important to say that groundwater already provides half of the volume of water withdrawn for domestic use. What we do on the surface matters underground. We must only put harmless, biodegradable products on the soil and use water as efficiently as possible. Groundwater crosses borders. We must work together to manage transboundary groundwater resources. We cannot manage what we do not measure. Groundwater must be thoroughly explored, analyzed, and monitored. Groundwater will play a critical role in adapting to climate change. We must protect and explore groundwater, balancing the needs of people and the planet. Now, whether the problem is water quality, water management, or water use efficiency, we as communities must be responsible and never rely only on governments or organizations to find solutions or mitigate risks. That's why we can observe, request help as well, and it is the responsibility of the officials to help, but most importantly, we, mitigating risks, and if we can, find solutions, and not any solutions, conscious solutions. We as schools can naturally teach learners about significance of water, but more importantly, involve them with real life activities, challenges, and assignments, not just presentations, but project-based learning. Give them opportunities to find nature-based solutions. While they are doing these projects, they can learn new terms from the field, like brackish water, base flow, evapotranspiration, gaining and losing streams, and other tech terms such as center pivots, etc. We as parents or families can also teach our children and adolescents how to use water wisely. And this is the basic step to take for raising this generation in a world that really requires water awareness. Simply being role models as well. For example, as mothers at homes while we are washing the dishes, cleaning our bathrooms, etc., showing that the water can be used for different purposes and showing that we can control the amount that we use water is so important. Raising our standards. The Summary Progress Update 2021 SDG 6 Water and Sanitation for All states that, quote, water is a key factor in managing risks related to famine, disease epidemics, migration, inequalities within and between countries, political instability, and natural disasters. With limited water resources, it is important to fairly balance the water requirements of society, the economy, and the environment." End quote. And it adds, quote, "We only manage what we measure," end quote. And we know this is what makes efforts pragmatic. Talking does not solve anything. Acting does. The summary uses monitoring data sheets and global indicators and defines status summary and priority areas for acceleration. For example, Global Target 6.1, the SDG 6.1, by 2030 achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all 100%. And as we see in the chart, there is the global indicator, the number of countries with data, baseline status, latest status, and the status summary and priority areas for acceleration. Another significant tool is the SDG ladder, service ladders, and these benchmark and compare progress across countries, and these have been updated and expanded for SDG monitoring. And it is very important to show in the figure 5 service levels ranging from surface water to safely managed and drinking water services, which is the global indicator for SDG Target 6. As educators and parents, we can monitor ourselves too. Educators can show learners how these systems work and explain them in simple terms. For example, showing them the data by country page on wash.org and exploring more in a simple way highlights the value of water monitoring and consequently water itself. And as parents, we can design simple charts with happy faces when the children use water in a sustainable way. The key point here is involve children and adolescents, make them responsible. Believing in our assets. Our main asset related to water is conscious connection. And here I share a few key ideas by Michael Stanley Gallisdorfer, an expert in water science, climate, and technology, who spoke on the DWW show, Don't Waste Water show, and the link is shared in the description below to listen to the whole episode. In that episode, Michael Stanley Gallisdorfer talks about the blue-green movement that changes the way we do economy, how better technical understanding and digitization enables to engineer with nature, how sponge cities are a new level of urbanization and environmental engineering, although still being a vivid debate in society, how involvement of all stakeholders is crucial to building a blue-green infrastructure, how cognitive connectivity needs to be restored along with water rehabilitation, how water needs to be presented in a fun and lively way instead of focusing on the negative reconnection, and why and how a water incubator could turn the tables. Although all this may sound overwhelming for us as educators and parents, but we do have assets. We can look around and see what can be done from our side. For example, we can manage our schools and home gardening in a sustainable way. Xeriscaping, for example, is a system that creates water-wise gardens or yards and adds beauty to the place. According to the landscape designer Carol Kastler, there are 7 principles that can put the system in place, having colored, fresh garden or yards year-round with minimum maintenance and less water. Educators and parents can involve children and adolescents with interesting resources, and I'm also sharing a link below from World Water Day, the campaign page. Whether you choose the Awareness Trivia app, videos, or crosswords and quizzes, you can put all that learned information into daily life so that children and adolescents can start building a productive perspective and develop value about groundwater, integrating our mind and positive energy in motion in everything we do. This theme brings about the story of the Moroccan child Ryan who lost his life when he fell into a well, and this raised many questions, one of which is naturally the mismanaged borehole sightings when hydrogeology principles are not employed. And the incident happened in Morocco, but it also happened in Spain and Germany and in many other countries in the past years. I hope that such an incident opens eyes to the importance of accountability and responsibility. Regardless of the other different factors in the story of that child and the other children who lost their lives falling into such wells, the issue remains. Let us think with our compassionate heart, because only a compassionate heart can bring plans to genuine fruition. Another topic is people driven to protecting forests, which is undoubtedly necessary for biodiversity, but again, we should not risk other ecosystems. An interesting paper by Forest Ecosystem states, it is easier to convince middle-class people in suburbs to give money to save rainforest than grasslands because grasses do not seem to elicit the same level of emotional response. So how accurate are we, and to what degree are we driven by our emotions? Our role as educators and parents is to light this drive to be compassionate about all, about humans, about animals, about plants, with no biases. Starting these discussions at home or in schools, watching documentaries together, can open their minds to new ways of seeing the world, with love and care for all. Tailoring to our needs and aspirations. Water is a necessity for life. Underdeveloped countries suffer from lack of access to drinking water, sanitation and hygiene, especially for young girls, and lack of water quality and management. Developed countries also face lack of quality and management, though in different forms, and they also have cyber water security. According to the Cyber Coordination Office, OCC, of the Spanish Ministry of Interior, in 2020 there were 31 cyber incidents in the water sector, corresponding to 0.1% of the total number of incidents in strategic sectors. Now, although water systems are mainly operational and they are less exposed to cyber attacks, the water sector is still not risk-free. And so what is needed is more effective, more evidence-based management and planning. And what is aspired? Safety, sustainability, and prosperity. We know that most of the work needs to be done by organizations predicated by national and international provisions, but as educators and parents, we can support when given a survey or questionnaire because data is needed for better decision making. Although in reality it cannot always be reliable and rewarding, but at least we do our part. Most importantly, we can use only what we need from the water available around us, especially when no one else is watching. It is our responsibility and it should be part of our daily lives. Spotting and solving our problems practically. Water as a theme is very complicated. It encompasses 13 areas: hand washing, hand hygiene, gender, human rights, ecosystems, quality and wastewater, scarcity, disasters, climate change, transboundary waters, urbanization, water sanitation and hygiene, water, food and energy, and financing. And here a quote from Groundwater organization, quote, "Groundwater contamination is the result of the human activity," end quote. For example, general groundwater contamination, overuse and depletion, nitrates, pharmaceuticals and personal care products, improperly managed on-site wastewater treatment systems, and other emerging issues. For example, one of the emerging issues is the hydraulic fracturing or fracking. Hydraulic fracturing or fracking is oil and gas drilling that can poison groundwater, pollute surface water, impair wild landscapes, and threaten wildlife if not carried out safely. Another issue is microplastics. These are the plastics that are less than 5 millimeters in length, coming from petrochemicals extracted from oil and gas products. They have become widespread in our oceans. Microplastics can be ingested by a wide range of animals, harming them and humans when they eat seafood. That's why facts about wash or water sanitation and hygiene are still alarming. For example, and I'm quoting from the UNICEF and World Health Organization page, today 1 in 4 people, 2 billion people around the world lack safe drinking water. Almost half of the global population, 3.6 billion people, lack safe sanitation. 1 in 3 people, 2.3 billion people around the world, lack basic hand washing facilities at home. Almost half of the schools in the world do not have hand washing facilities with soap and water. 207 million people spend over 30 minutes per round trip to collect water from an improved source. So as educators and parents, we can explain the dangers to children and adolescents in simple terms according to their level of understanding. One very nice activity is making a land and ocean structure, preferably the land and water locally, the place which they already know, and let them show and design a process for wash. This is real-world learning. Take them to the area, let them sketch and design on site. Ending this episode from Acts of Kind Attention by an article, A Journey Through Time, How Ancient Water Systems Inspired Today's Water Technologies, from Smart Water magazine link, and the link is also in the description box below. Quoting the authors, "The life of civilization flows as the world explores ways to store, transport, and purify drinking water and smartly eliminate or recycle wastewater. Water is the fountainhead of culture and innovation. Civilizations face two main water problems: abundance and distribution. Where there is too much water, the rule of survival is to stay above. But also, how do you survive when and where there is too little water?" End quote. Subscribe to view more from the series, Acts of Kind Attention. Let's nurture conscious learning.